Entering Limgrave on a new playthrough usually sparks a positive emotion because of its beauty. The giant Erd tree in the background illuminates the whole area, making you feel that the world you're about to step into is wonderful. However, beauty does not equal safety, and I want to know how safe Limgrave actually is. For this video, I'm going to utilize some disbelief, and instead of being this chosen, tarnished main character, I'm just going to be a regular guy living in the area. I'll be going around to some of the main points of interest within the territory and kind of assessing their safety. Sort of like a, what is the day-to-day like, or the quality of living. Once I've covered the most important locations, I'm going to be giving the most arbitrary rating for whether I think the area is safe or not. Most of the entities in this area are either wandering nobles or soldiers. The wandering nobles aren't doing much, they're kind of just travelers in this place. You'll usually find them either digging through dirt or in a caravan alongside some giants. Now, for the soldiers, they'll obviously be attacking the player. But again, I want to allow myself the ability to suspend disbelief here. They're usually found guarding forts and strongholds, or out and about patrolling. I don't think these guys would be trying to kill a random civilian, so long as you're not waltzing on what's basically their military base. With these circumstances, I'm going to treat these soldiers as the protectors of Stormvale Castle, as well as the army to fight against invaders. So on the safety scale, I think I'll go ahead and provide the wandering nobles and soldiers a safety rating of 8.5. Next, I want to talk about Limgrave's nature and wildlife. This whole area is very green with tons of grass, a lot of trees, and plenty of berry bushes. There are a few poisonous plants you'll find, but they're usually secluded to some ruins that you wouldn't normally go to. With the abundance of plant life, there's also an abundance of wildlife too. All over the place, you'll be running into spring hares, deer, sheep, and turtles. These animals don't show any sign of injury or maiming, which is not typical of a From Software game when they depict creatures. A lot of times they're either really decrepit, missing limbs, or really cut up, but these animals seem pretty healthy. I like to think that these creatures are able to thrive because of all the Roa fruit that can be found in the area. This fruit is what we use to turn into raisins in order to feed it to Torrent and heal its HP. If the raisins from this fruit are able to heal a spirit steed, I'd imagine the regular fruit itself would have a similar effect on the animals that eat it. The animals in Limgrave are definitely safe to interact with. Well, not all of them. Limgrave is still home to a few animals that will attack you. If you approach a boar, a ram, or a bear, you're definitely going to get attacked. And definitely stay far away from the giant rune bears that you can find in the Mistwood. Speaking of the Mistwood, it's probably not a safe place to be overall. However, there are a lot of designated paths that you can follow that seems to keep you away from a lot of the animals there. One of these designated paths leads straight to a church, so I'm guessing like every Sunday a group of these Marika worshippers just stroll on through the Mistwood forest. Also at nighttime, you might randomly just come across a group of bats that will attack you as well. This makes a nighttime stroll a bit more difficult, but I think that these bats usually stay away from designated paths that you usually see on the map. With all that, I think I'm going to give Limgrave's nature and wildlife a safety rating of 8.9. You're not really going to come across many plants or animals that are going to outright attack you, unless you're maybe walking through the middle of the forest. The next area I want to talk about is the lake. Now, the lake is home to a lot of wildlife that I would not consider safe at all. It contains speedy giant dragonflies, poisonous land squirts, and giant crabs that come out of the ground. Another relatively important threat to this area is a dragon that seems to fly down out of nowhere, making it look like this lake was plucked right out of the Florida Everglades. The creatures mentioned beforehand already create an unsafe environment, but the dragon on top of that really make me question that lake house property. I think on the arbitrary safety scale, I would give the lake a 4.2. Finally, for the last area of Limgrave, I'm going to talk about Stormveil Castle. Stormveil Castle is guarded by a ton of Godric soldiers, knights, and warhawks. And remember what I said towards the beginning of this video, where we're trying to treat ourselves as a civilian. And these soldiers and knights aren't going to just attack random civilians that are within the castle. So when we think of it like that, we, in this case, are not the player, making Stormveil Castle the safest place in Limgrave. If we were residents of the castle, I would feel pretty safe. The number of soldiers in the castle itself is staggering, but the equipment that they have available to them is nice as well. The area is equipped with a few ballistas, barricades, and even some flamethrowers. Not to mention the entire structure of the castle itself. It's pretty high up there compared to the rest of Limgrave, along with all the, of course, stone walls that surround the castle itself. I guess one of the only drawbacks to living inside the castle might be Godric himself. The dude seems quite unhinged, and you probably wouldn't want to make him mad, otherwise you might be added to the body parts. With all that being said, I think I'll go ahead and give Stormveil Castle a safety rating of 9.3. I'd say the only reason I'm knocking some points here is because of Godric, and there's a lot of precarious situations and areas you can find yourself within the castle that might make a fall pretty easy. If we treat each one of these categories as equal, Limgrave comes out to a solid 7.7 on the safety rating. With that score, I'm going to go ahead and classify Limgrave as a safe place to live. The score would be a lot higher, but there's nothing really redeemable about the lake. It unfortunately brings the score down quite a bit. Now, if you look at a map of Limgrave, you might be asking yourself why it seems like I skipped over some areas or why I didn't talk about certain places. Honestly, I think the places that I chose were more geographically different from one another, so it makes it a bit more interesting. Some of the places like Stormhill don't have a lot going on compared to the other places. As well as if you look and see all of the caves and catacombs, each area in Elden Ring has those, so I don't think it's really important to talk about each one of them separately, so I'm not going to consider them at all. Also, if you go back and think about it as like a normal person or civilian, most of us aren't going to caves and catacombs on the regular basis. Anyway, if you find yourself in Limgrave and you're looking to settle down, I would recommend Stormveil Castle above all other places first. If that doesn't work out and you can't get yourself into the castle, I would recommend any of the flat, grassy plains areas. You'll be able to find tons of these in the Stormhill and main Limgrave areas. Being able to see your whole surroundings makes for a safer place as opposed to, say, living in a wooded area like the Mistwood, which I wouldn't recommend the Mistwood at all. I'd also say stay far away from the lake. That place is not worth living next to at all. Anyways, that does it for Limgrave, which is probably the most serene out of all the areas in Elden Ring. If you ended up liking this type of video or are interested in me doing the other areas in Elden Ring, such as like Caelid, definitely let me know in the comments because I would love to do that. Also, if you are new to the channel, I have a few build videos where I usually take a more restricted stance on my playstyle. This usually creates difficult and sometimes goofy solutions for some of the hardest bosses. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again.